Right, so we're in Revelation chapter 6, verses 7 and 8. We're looking at the fourth seal. These two verses just go hand in hand, so I'm going to go ahead and combine them together. We've seen the first three seals opened and what their effects are. We're about to see some repercussions from the third seal being opened as the authority is progressed even further. In verse 7 it says, "And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, 'Come and see.' And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth." The fourth and last of the horsemen rides upon a pale horse. I don't really like that description because the word there that they used tells you so much more. The horse's particular color is that of chloros, or a pale green. We would probably be most familiar with this color as chlorine, which is a yellowish green gas. This horseman is also the only one to receive a name, and that is Death. The name for death can either mean literal or spiritual, but the rest of this verse will give us the context to see that this is definitely a physical death. What follows him is not hell. The word that they use there is the place that the dead reside. And I think that's more specific because culturally we don't call that place the same name, yet even when other people refer to where the dead reside, they have a name for it. And so I think that's a nice way to put it, is saying what follows him is the place where the dead reside. No matter who you are or where you're from, you're going to die. The phrase authority here is the phrase moral authority. And right before this, we've seen that the peace of mind is taken. Then the prices on basic commodities change. And now what do we see? The moral authority to kill. This is similar to what Hitler did back during World War II. He began by making small changes. It wasn't some big, gigantic change and all of a sudden it's okay to kill people. No, he made small changes, and it ended up changing the morals of those around them so that they believed that killing a Jew is fine because, well, they're Jew. They're bad. So it's okay to kill them. That was their mindset. It wasn't a very first thing. He had to convince the people around them that they were the root of the problem. We see a yoke put on them, put on people to unite them, and it's this starvation, and it's supposed to unite them. Well, what is it uniting them towards? It's uniting them to say, hey, it's okay to kill a Christian because they're the problem. They're the reason we're having all this. And here the mindset finishes shifting over from the influence of the Antichrist to where it is now morally fine to kill by murder, by starvation, by plague. Some people believe this to be chemical warfare tied to the chlorine nature of the horse, and by having beasts kill them, which at various times has been sport. This mentality will not cover the entire globe, however. We are shown again and again and again, even here, that it is God and God alone who has the final authority. The Antichrist here will be given only the authority or the power to cause this over 25% of a region. Again, in Greek, the earth is poetically Gaia or Gai. The word here is Ges, which again is a region. It's not going to be all encompassing. So because his influence will only be allowed to go so far, again, there will be places who do not side with the Antichrist when it comes to killing all the Jews and Christians, which we will see a little bit further on in verse 11, I believe it is. So here we have, and this is again, it's not a timeline, it's a time frame. We had the first seal, which unified people through a peace. and that is where the Antichrist is going to initially come on the scene, and we do know that we will be able to see him and know when this is happening, because we are told to be watchful for it, and that those who are watching and really understand, at that time we will know. Right now there's speculations and theories, but there will be a knowledge. So personally, I'm again not making a timeline, so the first seal has to occur somewhere within this first part, because the seals are given here. We start the 1260 days with the first seal at some point within that, so that we get the peace. We have the second seal where that peace is taken away, and we know from Daniel 9 that it's going to be revealed. He's going to set himself up. This is what we're going to do, and we see this mentality beginning to shift. So that gives us the third seal, and the fourth seal just somewhere. We don't know where, but we know it's not going to be the first half. I mean, that's just common sense. You can't put the third seal before the second seal. It has to be after. They use these words for a specific location, a specific timing of the events. And that's one of the great things that you get from the language of this. And that brings us to the fifth seal in verse 9. It says, "And when he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony that they held." So the fifth seal is now open, and this time there's no power given, there's no authority. Instead, John sees that under the altar are souls. Now the word for altar has two meanings. One, it is the meeting place between God and the true or sincere worshiper. And the second meaning is an object upon which sacrifices are made. So John saw the souls of sincere believers who had been sacrificed communing with God. And it is revealed as well for what reason these sincere believers are sacrificed. This was not a nice word for sacrifice. The word is the word for slain, where it says, "I saw the altar, under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God." That word slain is sphazo, which means to kill by violence. They were not put to sleep as we would like to put the death penalty today. No, these are going to be people that are killed by violence. It's going to be a very violent death. And it will be for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. The fact that it says for the word of God tells us that these people who were slain believed the Bible is true. The testimony which they held is a little inaccurate, though. It is not because they knew the truth. The word held is more accurately upheld. So not only do they know the truth, but when they are confronted with the violence, they stand firm and do not sway from standing for the truth. In verse 10 it says, "And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth?" And they cried. Now Strong's defines the word here as shrieking, but Helps goes into further detail for the word. It points out that this was crying out loudly with an urgent scream or shriek, using inarticulate shouts that express deep emotion. So those who died standing for the truth are crying out here with deep emotional feelings. They are not, however, inarticulate shouts, as John is able to record the words that are said. John used the word here instead to convey the emotional depth of what they're crying out. And at first, I'll admit, I started reading over the next word where they first start calling out, "O Lord, how holy, how long, O Lord, how holy and true," because the word Lord is one that we see very often. And then I realized it wasn't similar to any word I had seen used for Lord in any of the songs or studies so far, although this particular one is used 9 other times in the New Testament. This is despotes, which comes from posis, which means husband, and it means properly an authority figure who exercises complete jurisdiction and wields unrestricted power. So they cry out specifically, how long, O one with complete jurisdiction with unrestricted power. And I find it interesting that the word here came from husband because the church is espoused to the Lord. Now, before anyone assumes that this means the souls under the altar are Christians, because of it, there is one instance of this word used by a Jew, and that's in Luke 2:29 when Simeon holds up Jesus. So it cannot directly mean that these are only Christians. It does, however, mean that it is only used by those who seek Christ, because Simeon is pointed out as having been one who was just and devout, waiting for the consolation of Israel. The word for judge is specific to a judgment that is meted out in a court. I believe that this does not refer to the judgments that will be poured out on the earth, but the judgment that will come when the books are opened, because of that understanding that it's a courtroom judgment. The word for avenge is to carry a judgment completely through, and this also points more towards that this is not a time of judgment upon the earth that they're calling out for, because it's not completely through at that point. The phrase "from those dwelling upon the earth" does make it seem like the judgment's poured out upon the earth, but when you look for the word dwelling, however, it changes. The word for dwelling is permanent residence. They are asking for vindication upon those who have made the earth their permanent dwelling place, the lost. Those who are saved do not have the earth as our permanent resident for our permanent residence in because our permanent residence is in heaven. This place is just a temporary residence for us. So they are asking for judgment to be completely carried out upon those who are lost, and that will not be finished until the final judgment in heaven's court, when they are cast in the lake of fire, as seen in Revelation chapter 20, verse 15. So all that kind of gives us context for this one. That one little verse, those few words give us so much more. And verse 11 says, "And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled." And this is going to take a little bit of a lengthy explanation. It's going to get a little confusing possibly for some people, so I want to go ahead and pause the video here for this particular portion and give you time to think, if you would like, on why do we see the words fellow servant and brethren used here, and is there any significance to it?